Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Morning Coffee with STrEaM Academy. Good morning to those who are watching live on YouTube. We just started the stream. I'm your host and principal, Adam O'Kelke, and our admin assistant, Mrs. Bionich. Our co-host is here with me today. Today's a very special morning coffee for a couple of reasons. We have a special guest on with us today that we're going to be excited to introduce in a moment. And it's also the last teacher workday of the year. So we're going to launch our teachers and thank them for their awesome work this year and say goodbye to them. I need to stop sharing my screen for just a second to get to something so I can. Okay, so I can introduce our guest. So like to introduce our guest today. Our guest is Allison Holzer, and Mrs. Bionich and I are so excited to bring her on. She's the author of this book that Mrs. Bionich and I are both reading, and we hope other folks will be interested to read. Allison Holzer is the co-CEO and Chief Innovation Officer of Inspire Corp, an inspiration strategy firm that partners with organizations to drive business growth and innovation. She, Jen Grace Barron, and Sandy Sperato are co-authors of the newly released book, Dare to Inspire, Sustain the Fire of Inspiration in Work and Life. This book draws from their original research and redefines inspiration as a most critical resource in a modern work and organizational culture. She speaks passionately and writes on the topic, grounded in her original thought leadership in executive coaching, emotional intelligence, and applied positive psychology, all of which we're loving very much. Allison holds a BA in psychological brain sciences with an emphasis on learning and cognition from Dartmouth College, and dual master's degrees in education and fine arts from American University. Welcome, Allison Holzer. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for the warm welcome. Hey, everybody. So thrilled to be here with all of you this morning, and excited to talk about a topic that I know I love and hope you all are going to love as well, inspiration. It's certainly a topic that's coming up a lot now in terms of importance and relevance, right? Because we're all facing uncertain, challenging times today. And so, and one of the things that we need in order to navigate through uncertain and challenging times and uncertainty is inspiration to help us see a way forward. So we're going to be sharing today about some of our ideas and research from that we've conducted and related to the book. So can I share my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me make you a co-host.
Okay, great.
And you should be able to do that. All right. You're
great. All right. I'm going to pop up my screen. And first of all, I just want to say congrats to all of you for the end of the school year and for getting through the last couple months. I can only imagine how challenging that's been. I have two young boys, so I certainly feel it on the other side, you know, in terms of how you've been able to be agile and shift your approach. So congratulations to you on getting through that and for finishing up the year. So I just want to start by kind of asking the question and have you all think about this question. You know, that why is it that inspiration is so important to us, and why is it that it matters so much to us today, and how can we begin to think about it as something that we can choose and create? I'd love for y'all to raise your hand, be honest, if you've ever felt uninspired in your life, if you've ever had an uninspired moment. Yeah, so I think I see almost everyone's hands raised. I know I've certainly felt that way. I want you to think back on those times and what that felt like, how difficult that may have been for you. You know, you may have had these moments recently because certainly we're facing trying times. So the reason why, you know, one of the times that I've actually felt really uninspired. And I'm going to share it with you all. I actually haven't shared this ever publicly, but I want to share it with you all because my career really started within education. And one of the times that I felt most uninspired was, ironically, at a time when I probably should have been feeling this nonstop inspiration extravaganza. I was actually in school pursuing a joint degree in art education. And it was something that I pursued because I loved art and I loved teaching and coaching. And at the time, I thought, okay, this is my dream come true. This is what I want to be doing. And yet, when I got into my student teaching situation, something felt off. It just didn't feel right. And I felt lost because I had sort of worked to this place and it just didn't feel right. But what happened during that time was something that really stands out that changed me, which is I met a particular student who stood out to me. And I wish I could tell you that I can remember what his name is. This was almost 20 years ago. I don't remember his name, but I do very vividly remember his face. If I close my eyes and picture it, I can see him very clearly in my mind. And this particular student, he was incredibly disengaged in class, like completely disengaged in class. And I couldn't understand it, and I was frustrated by it. And at first I thought, well, maybe it's me and maybe it's this class. And I went around and talked to other teachers. And I asked them, and other teachers said, no, he's like that in my class too. And I became kind of fascinated with this because I was concerned. And of course, I thought, well, here's a student who, has gifts to give the world and has things that I know he's got to be passionate about and inspired by, but I can't figure out what they are and I can't figure out how to bring those to life. And it was so frustrating to me. And to be honest, it was like they were just locked in there so tight. And I realized in that moment that for me, it was less about the subject matter. That was what was interesting to me. And it was more about the psyche of the student, like how to understand that. And that's when I personally became, really interested with this question of inspiration. How does it work? How can we create it for ourselves? How can we inspire others when I have a student in front of me that I just can't reach? How do we create that in others? How does the world create more inspiration? And it became, something, a problem in my head that I was trying to figure out and to solve. So while I wasn't able to solve this situation with this student, and I think about that often, and I hope that today he is inspired and has found things that bring him out and bring his talents out. I've tried to solve this problem for others. I've tried to understand this and bring it into the world so that other people can discover this for themselves. So that's really what kind of sparked all of this. And I want to share with you all that I'm sort of a Latin nerd by trade. I in school myself, I took many years of Latin. And I think the roots of words are really interesting in terms of how we understand them. Yeah. So inspiration, when we try to understand what it is and how it works, I look to the Latin root, which is inspirare. And inspirare, the Latin root, the Latin word, literally means to breathe air into your lungs. So I want to invite you right now to, if you want to stand up or just sit up a little bit taller in your chair and just take a nice big deep breath in, like a big deep breath where your chest comes up. Inspirare, that's literally what it means, to breathe air into your lungs, right? And I want you to just feel what that feels like, to have that oxygen coming in. It's like it literally is breathing fresh air into your body. And I hope as you did that just now, you had even if it's a little bit of a boost of energy, right? Did you feel that little boost of energy, even in changing your posture? So when we think about inspiration in terms of why it's important and why it matters, I think that this is an important part of it. It's that energy that then you get to apply and you give forward to the world through your gifts and through your talents. This was the kind of thing that I was looking for in that student that I just couldn't figure out, right? I wanted to see him with that kind of life. Yeah. So, starting in 2015, with my two co-CEOs and co-authors, you see here, Jen Grace Barron at the top, bottom left, Sandy Spataro, we went out to really understand this in the literature. We interviewed nearly 100 leaders across all different industries and backgrounds. It included educators as well. And we asked them questions about inspiration, how it works for them, how they create it, how they sustain it, and how it's made a difference for them in their work. And our book, Dare to Inspire, is a culmination of this research where we share many different myths and truths about inspiration. The book really guides you on a journey for how to crack the code on your own inspiration fingerprint, your own process. But really what we found is that it's a way underrated resource. You know, people think about it as this squishy, fuzzy thing that, you know, maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't, when in fact, it's one of the most important resources that we can tap into, certainly as educators and as leaders. I mean, when you think about, and we discovered this in our book, you know, some of the outcomes of inspiration, what it produces, what it creates. And a lot of times, some of our biggest kind of extraordinary, you know, moments in society and, you know, performance can be brought forward through inspiration. In our book, we interviewed the youngest person to fly solo around the world. We talked to, you know, Nobel Peace Prize winning changes in society. You have extraordinary market innovations. You have, you know, phenomenal ways to respond to natural disasters, someone we talked to, surviving the loss and grief of a child to then create a platform and a community that brings people together, people who are saving lives every day. These are some examples of people who we talked to in terms of, you know, what inspiration was able to produce in them. But at the same time, inspiration also serves us in the quieter and less glamorous kinds of moments, but they're equally important. Like inspiration helps us, you know, have courageous conversations that we may need to have with a friend or a colleague or a student. Inspiration can help us maybe change gears in a career. It can help us bring a child into the world. It can help us with our parenting. It can help us learn something new. It can help us reach out for help when we need it. It can help us do things that scare us, but help us grow. So it really can be this critical resource in both big moments and maybe smaller and quieter moments. So I want you to think back on that moment or the times when you felt uninspired at the very beginning, when I asked you when you felt uninspired, and just think about, you know, what in those moments could have been different or helped you bring in kind of new possibilities and courage to take action. If you could activate inspiration when you need it most, what would that mean for you? What would the difference be for you? Yeah. So I'm here to tell you that you can activate inspiration when you need it most. But first you have to kind of change how you think about it. And so our focus today, and I'm going to share a few ideas from the book, some core philosophies and ideas, and then we will have hopefully a lot of time to have some Q&A and hear your thoughts and discussion as well. But feel free to pop in questions along the way if you have them as well. So I want you to just think about, you know, when in your work, when in your lives currently, you think now, do you need inspiration the most? When do you really need it? And I'd like you to think about both the types of situations, maybe even how frequently. And I'm not sure if can we use the chat function? Can folks type in responses? Okay, cool. So if you could just type in just a couple examples for each of you. When do you think you need inspiration as a resource for yourself, for your work and for personal life? I see, here's the chat. Great, and pop it in. Okay. Problem solving, when I'm overwhelmed with things to do, when encountering challenges, when it's dark and cold. Yeah, I forgot, you guys have that a lot up there, huh? Coming up with ideas and for dinner, yes. When energy's flagging on our staff during difficult times of the year, yeah. So I second dinner. Launches for classes. Yes, important times for students. Trying to figure out how to make plans with friends. Working hard as a teacher, seeing I'm not making a difference for my students. Yeah, and it seems like I'm not making a difference. Making friends during summer sun high. Yep. When students are challenging, cold and gloomy, all of the above. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for your honesty and sharing these. You can see the broad diversity of all the different times when we know we need inspiration, and how painful it can feel at times when you know you need it, but you can't find it. You don't know where to look. You don't know what to do. So I'll just share very broadly that, and these came up in a lot of your all's answers, when you think about times you need inspiration, what is it able to produce for you? And we found in our research that, inspiration, yes, it's an emotion that feels good and we can enjoy feeling inspired, right? But there's a lot of other things that come out of it. As individuals, when we're able to activate inspiration, we are more open, visionary, and strategic in our thinking. You can kind of elevate and think bigger picture. We often have better results, better performance, right? Think about yourself as a teacher when you're coming in and when you're inspired and you bring that energy into the classroom. I bet you show up differently, that you have a different impact, right? Stronger connections, community. Right? We connect through inspiration. It's this human emotion that brings us together. And we often feel more purpose-driven and calling-oriented. There's also really extraordinary team and organizational kinds of results that, when our teams are functioning in inspiring ways, we're also able to be more agile. Boy, do we need a lot of creativity, innovation, and agility right now, right? We have to really be innovating right now. So inspiration is a critical driver in being able to do that, even on the tough days, or even when, we don't see, those innovations and possibilities. How do we activate it? And so these are some of the important results. And I share this with you because I want you to also feel the gravitas of why inspiration matters so much, that we're not just talking about the feel-good side of it, which it certainly has, but it really is an important driver for all of us in our work. So why is this? Like, why is inspiration like this superpower resource, that we can activate into, that we can activate in our work, and that can help us produce these results? Why does it have the power to do that? And I'm going to go back to the kind of definition of it. If you Google it, definitions of inspiration are kind of not great. Like the one that I saw here from Google is, inspiration is, quote, a force or influence that inspires someone. Like, what does that even mean, right? What does that even mean? So when we did our research, we said we have to come up with a better definition of inspiration, something that actually really describes what it is and why it's so powerful. So here it is. You guys get to see it here. We define inspiration as the intersection of two things that are happening at the same time. One is you're experiencing greater possibility. So if you were like this, looking at a problem, and many of you said you need inspiration when you're trying to solve problems. So you're looking at a problem like this, and all of a sudden you see it like this. Like, okay, I had 1 or 2 solutions. Now I have 5. Now I have 10. I see new opportunities. I see new ways of seeing people around me. I see a new way of seeing my student who's maybe I'm not connecting with or having a tough time with, right? New possibilities. But it's not just that kind of open excitement, hope, new ideas feeling, because that would not necessarily translate into action, right? So at the same time that you're experiencing these greater possibilities, you also have what we call invincibility. And invincibility we define as a combination of courage and confidence to take action. So you have greater courage and confidence to take action in those goals and areas where you want to apply it, where you want more inspiration. So imagine, the lesson launch that I think somebody mentioned earlier. I could definitely see you want inspiration to launch something new in the classroom. Imagine you've got these big ideas, you've got this new possibility and excitement, and you're saying, okay, there are some ideas here. They're a little bit risky. I don't know if we should do it, but you know what? I'm going to try these out. That's the courage and confidence to take action. You put those two together and boom, you have, something new that you're really putting some exciting energy into. Yeah. So you can feel the power in that possibility and invincibility. this is the resource that allows, when we talk to Captain Irving, the youngest person to fly solo around the world in a plane that he raised money for and built himself. I mean, can you even imagine? It's incredible. You've got to have tremendous possibility and invincibility to be able to do that. So this is what I was looking for in that student that I couldn't reach. I was looking for this within him. I wanted to see what brought forward possibility and invincibility for him. So this is how we define inspiration. But the thing is, we also discovered one other thing that was new and different, because the thing about inspiration is most people think that it's something that is it's like a hot, fleeting, kind of exciting thing, and then it goes away. Like it's, whoa, boom, I'm inspired. And then, I wake up the next morning and I'm like, oh, I need some coffee. And there's some truth to that. It doesn't always feel boom and exciting, right? But the idea that we discovered in talking to all these leaders who were able to activate and use inspiration successfully in their work is that they weren't just able to spark it, they were also able to sustain it. They were able to sustain it. It's like taking a hot sparkler that eventually will burn out, and instead of letting it burn out, you stick it in a candle wick and you light a flame. You light a flame that can stay. It's not quite as hot and as exciting as the initial spark, but it stays burning. It doesn't burn out. And that's how we think about sustainable inspiration. And it's really, really important. And it's like a muscle. It's like a muscle that you have to build, because it's a mindset where you're looking for it all the time, you're seeking it out, and you're cultivating it in yourself and others. And so what enables inspiration to turn into sustainable inspiration is what we call intentional practice. And by the way, I'll be sharing with you all a tool. So the tool that was in the chat box is one of just many different intentional practice inspiration tools that you can use. So I'm excited for you all to be able to try that out. So inspiration, you want it, I hope. You understand the value of it. You want to both create it and sustain it. Well, where do you start? Like, how do you do this? And I wish I could answer that question in 15 seconds and we'd be done, and you'd be like, all right, I got it. All good. Of course, it's not that simple, but but what I will share is that what we found is that there are these three very distinct pathways, three different pathways where you can find inspiration. And by the way, you can use all these pathways, but we often have a particular pathway, that maybe we look at first, places where we go first. And the first pathway that we found, we call personal inspiration. So personal inspiration pathway, this is when you look for inspiration inside of yourself. So if you are somebody who, you love to research things, you love to get on the computer and look at new ideas and say what is that? I want to learn this thing and I want to make this connection. Or maybe you're someone who, you gain a lot from moments of reflection, from, understanding your values. So inspiration is coming from things that you are thinking about, things that you are individually doing. So that's personal inspiration. Then inspiration can also come from others. So this is when you source inspiration in your relationships and the people around you. This can be tapping into your mentors, your heroes. This can be feeling fueled by having a really strong team mission that drives you. This can be, coming together with team huddles at the beginning of the day, morning coffees. This can, it's coming together in community and those around you that really activate and source inspiration for you. And then the third pathway to inspiration that we talk about is from situations. Now, situations we can't always control, right? We're in a situation right now that none of us really have control over. But when we think about situations as a source of inspiration, it's how you internalize and process and think about that situation. So we actually interviewed somebody from the book who lost his son at age 16, and he was a physician. He talked about how horrible this was, of course, and how powerless he felt as a physician to see this happening. And he also talked about how that situation certainly changed him forever. But how one of the things that his main source of inspiration now is that he holds the grief of his son close to his heart every day. And that actually that loss, that grief when he holds it close to him is what actually enables greater possibility and invincibility for him to show up, to activate new ideas, to bring new ideas into the world. It gives him courage. It gives him that purpose. So inspiration, it can come sometimes from difficult situations. It's not always, sunshine and rainbows. But it's how we process it. It's how we tap into those situations to move us towards having an impact in the world. But inspiration from situations can also be, inspiration from your environment. Some of us are very sensitive to nature, light, colors, the rooms that we're in, and don't take this for granted. If you need your environment to be inspiring to you, that's critical. You have to pay attention to it and really curate your environment, or take walks or do the things that you need to do to source inspiration from situations around you. So I ask you all the question, if you could pop into the chat, just looking at these three pathways, where do you go first for inspiration? So if you think about those times when you're uninspired, if you had to guess, and there's no right or wrong answer, and of course you can go to all three, but where would you go first to find inspiration? Okay. Yeah, so we're seeing, folks all across the board here. We've got some personal, some go to other people, and some are going to situations. Yep. Yeah. And you know what? If you don't know, that's okay, right? Because we're just getting you to kind of churn and think about it. Depends on the issue, Andronelle. Yes, absolutely. Sometimes we source it different places depending on the situation. So here's the thing. If you want to begin to understand more how to activate inspiration for yourself, we actually have some specific tools and ways that you can activate inspiration within those three pathways. And one of the ways that we begin to have you understand this for yourself is to imagine a recent best day or best moment. Okay, so I'm going to ask you all to think about this now. What is a recent best moment or best day? And when I say that, I mean, you felt like you were having the impact you want to have. You felt like you were in the flow. You were having a connection or strong moment. Let's say with a student or a colleague or family member, you felt on, like it felt aligned. Right? So just think about an example of this. And it doesn't have to be a big boom kind of inspiration moment. It can just be, hey, I had this great moment the other day that felt really on. And I'd like you to think about three specific things that contributed to that day being great. And I'm going to ask Adam in just a minute to come on and share. But if you could just jot down first for yourself, just think through it. Three specific things that contributed to the day being great. You can think about, was there a way that you started your morning? Was there something that you did that kind of kicked things off on the right foot? Was there a specific situation or something in your environment that enabled this to happen? Was there a particular kind of community or group that you were around that you think contributed to this being great? Was there something that you were able to do to make it happen? Right. So just jot down your ideas, first thought, best thought, couple ideas that you think contributed to the day being great. And as you're jotting that down, I'd love to invite Adam, if you could share with us your example of a recent best day or moment and what you think contributed to it being great. Love to hear your thoughts on this.
Thank you. I always go right to our school and our it's to STrEaM Academy and think about awesome days that we've had. And I think yesterday actually is a great example. Yesterday we had our end of the year assembly, and we had to do it on Zoom because of the situation that we're in. And that's really, really hard because the last day of school is really special. It's really special to me. It's special to kids. It's special to our staff. And we were able to make it really special yesterday. And I think that collaborative, collective efficacy of our staff is one of the big reasons. The school climate and culture that we've built with parents and students and among our staff and our school community is another reason. Being prepared, we worked on the agenda and the slides and did preparation in small groups and in teams and individually, for a week to be really ready for this. Our teachers put together amazing, amazing awards and recognition and a beautiful video. And not one person was responsible for making it great. It was such a collaborative group effort, which really speaks to our school. So I think that's the first example that came to my mind, is just, yesterday was a good example of our school being awesome.
Nice. Love it. So I heard in your example, coming together as a community. So really you had this sort of shared vision and kind of purpose and bringing this together. I heard some examples of, what I would call kind of overcoming some obstacles. It wasn't the way that you normally would do it. So you had to get creative and come up with some new ways to solve this challenge so you could have a great experience. Yeah. And then I also heard, just the community, the people, that bringing the talents to the table and everyone being a part of it. So this sort of belonging, coming together within community. Yeah, great. Thank you so much for sharing that example. I really appreciate it. I'd love for folks, if you could also now in the chat box, maybe share just one of the things, you thought of a few things that made your moment or day great. Like what were some examples for you that made your moments and days great? You don't have to share what the best day or best moment was, but just what you think contributed to it. Yeah, so I hear flexible openness to changes, sense of accomplishment, togetherness. Yeah, I cleaned your house. That does feel really good. Encouragement from my team, feeling of belonging, being rested. Whew, yeah, our physical energy is really important. Connection with others. I think it was the occasion. I wanted to make my husband happy. Nice. Beautiful. Great. Good examples. Keep them coming in. And what I'm going to do now is share with you all. You'll see within each of these 3 pathways to inspiration, personal inspiration from others and situations, you see under each 6 different, what we call engines of inspiration. And engines of inspiration, we can't get into all of them right now in terms of what they are and how they work, but we do get into it more in the book. But what I will share about them is that they are reliable things that you can reliably do or think about that can spark inspiration for you. And the reality is that we each have certain engines of inspiration that are higher octane for us, right? Because we're all individual. And this is back to the point where I say, I wish I could tell you the answer to how to find inspiration for yourself, but it's, the answers are, for you to discover based on the engines that are highest octane for you. And what's beautiful about knowing this is when you begin to know what your unique kind of inspiration code is, those engines that you can, that really work especially well for you, is that's where you can begin to activate them more for yourself. And I'm going to share with you my own personal example, because there's a couple engines that I've learned over the years that are very high octane for me. The first one is unstructured time, which is under the personal inspiration engines. And unstructured time we learned about in our research from a psychologist who studies the neurology of learning. And he was a former professor of mine that I admired, and he let us interview him for our research. And it's a really fascinating kind of thing, but there's neuroscience to support it, that when we give our brains like a sabbatical, a little bit of a break, and we go into situations where our brains can just kind of wander and be open, where we don't have structured tasks that we're trying to check off of our to-do list, that in fact, our brains are able to solve problems and come up with new ideas and feel inspired in new ways. It doesn't always happen, but it often will, especially if this is something that an engine that works well for you. And so this is one that works well for me. And when I combine it with new environments and inspiring environments, which you see that's under the inspiration from situations column. So if I go into a new environment that is inspiring to me, and I have unstructured time to kind of let my brain wander, all of a sudden really wacky, crazy, cool things start to happen. And it's really kind of, it's a great, it produces great results for me. And in fact, this happened for me last fall. I went away just for a couple days. I have little kids, so I don't get away often, but I went away for a couple days. I went to a beautiful place, or lots of mountains, and it was gorgeous. I was outside a lot. And during that time, and on the plane ride back, I was not going to work. I was not planning any tasks or activities, but it was just like, boom, all these ideas came forward. And I ended up producing these 3 important solutions for things that we needed for our business, on the plane ride back from that experience. And that is not coincidental. I've learned that that's not coincidental. And it's so important, in fact, that I start to now build unstructured time, in bigger ways, like a couple days, but also in smaller ways. So sometimes I'll have I try to build into my calendar at least once a week, a block of about 2 hours. It's not a ton, but it's enough to kind of start churning a little bit. And sometimes I'll take a walk in nature while I do that, to kind of activate those 2 together. So that's just an example for me of 2 engines that I know work well together for me. They produce inspiration results for me. And now part of my intentional inspiration practice is that I actually plan for it, because I know it's important in my work. I know it produces better results for me and how I show up in my work. So I'd like to invite you all, now that you've sort of looked through this, I know you've been kind of looking through this list as the slide's been up here, and think about, your example of your best day and best moment. And if you had to code for yourself 1 or 2 of these engines that you think were particularly sticky and helpful during that moment, that best moment or day, type it into the chat box. And Principal McCulkey, did I say your name correctly? Last name? McCulkey.
McCulkey, yes.
McCulkey.
Close enough.
Okay, good. I don't want to tell you what yours were, but like, what would you say? I kind of coded some as I heard, but what would you say in your example were highest octane?
For us, I think values and purpose were driven by our mission and our vision, and serving kids, and doing great things as a school community, I think. And then that kind of flows right into, from personal to inspiration from others. Serving others is huge for me, and I think it really contributes to, when we're able to do great things as a staff, and belonging. That community is so important to us, and great things come when we do things to build community and bring everything together. And then overcoming constraints, right? Like our staff is amazing when faced with a challenge like school closure and COVID and going online, like trying to do an end of the year assembly virtually. When we have constraints and roadblocks, our staff is galvanized to overcome those.
Yes, love it, love that. And what you're speaking to also is, I heard some of these engines of inspiration for you personally, but I also heard you speaking to, and it makes sense as principal of the school, that you're speaking to the engines of inspiration for your team, for your broader community and team. And it's true that sometimes we have individual engines that are different, and we also have to be aware of what moves the community. What types of engines move the community? And, having worked with different organizations and companies across the years, it can look really different, in terms of what gets teams really inspired as a collective. Sometimes it's all about, activating their strengths. Sometimes it's all about getting them out of their element and going to a new place. Sometimes it's all about vulnerability and having them be really, sharing more with one another. It really varies across groups. So you have to sort of learn that for your group, and as a leader, see that and cultivate it, when you see what works for your team. Beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to look now in the chat box. So we've got achievements, serving others. Yes, structure your unstructured time. That's right. Mentors, witnessing excellence. Witnessing excellence, by the way, it's why we love watching things like the Olympics, and sports on TV. It's like it moves us. As educators, you probably have other educators you see who are excellent, and it moves you when you see, oh my gosh, that's amazing what they did with that lesson. It's really incredible. Making a difference, serving others, yes. Values and purpose, belonging, overcoming constraints, serving, achievements, yes. So I just want you all to take note of the diversity that you're seeing across these examples. Diversity for yourself as well, that you may tap into multiple pathways of inspiration for yourself, and also just diversity across the group. So the idea with this as a tool, and of course you can go way deeper in this kind of scratches the surface for you a bit, but as a way to kind of toe dip into an inspiration practice, it's seeing what these engines are, the ones that stand out most to you, and thinking for yourself, what would it look like to build this into my week ahead? What would it look like to try to create new ways to bring this into my work? These engines that mean a lot to me. So, and why would we do this? Well, because I believe that the world needs your inspiration. I truly believe that. We found that we spend on average around 90,000 hours at work in a lifetime. Like, can you imagine that? That doesn't even count the time that you've spent in school as a student, which is another form of work as well, right? Think about those numbers of hours that you spend in your work in a lifetime, and it's a credible opportunity to bring inspiration into it more fully. Because what we know is that inspiration, like all emotions, it's contagious. And so when you're able to bring more of it into what you do, those around you pick up on it and they feel it as well. So kind of going back to that situation with the student I described at the very beginning, I was trying to understand, how do I crack into this? How do I help him? What is it that's going to work? In fact, maybe it's could have been me being more inspired myself, that maybe that would have moved him. I don't know. But what we know is that even small increments. So just imagine that you tune up the dial like 5%, 10% more of your time in your work, in your personal life is inspired. We're not expecting inspiration to happen all moments of every day. That may not even be a great outcome, right? We need to experience all different kinds of experiences and emotions. But imagine that even 5 to 10% more of these hours were inspired ones. And you go back to those results of inspiration, greater agility, greater connection, greater performance and results. What is the result for you, right? Imagine the impact for you on a larger scale, and imagine the impact on those around you on a larger scale. So it's a tremendous opportunity. So I want to invite you to think about that for yourself, and really the importance of having an inspiration practice that's a part of what you do. And so to do this, I'm going to give you this is a gift, and I'll just run through this really quickly now, but then I'd love to open up to questions, because you all are going to have this. You have this as a download. It's a worksheet, and we call it an inspiration roadmap. Got 3 steps. It's a great way to toe dip in, to spark it, sustain it, and share it. And so the 3 steps are really simple. The first one is you pick that engine or 2 that you want to tap into, and you block it into your calendar. So for me, this is blocking in an unstructured time. For you, it might be, maybe you start a new team huddle. Maybe you, start a new activity or project that's going to bring forward things that are important to you. Maybe you connect or reach out with new people that you haven't connected with who inspire you. There's a lot of ways to think about doing this. Think simple, think something that you can accomplish, that you'll be successful in doing. So you spark it by blocking it into your time ahead, that engine. Step 2, sustain it. Our energy is important. We sustain inspiration by taking care of our energy. And it's not just physical energy, it's emotional energy. And so what's one way that you can think about managing your energy in the week ahead, whether it's stretch breaks, walking meetings, listening to music, doing something that gives you a lift or a boost, building in some time for breathing, meditation. These are all different ways that you can manage your energy, and it's an important part of sustaining inspiration. And then step 3 is share it. Inspiration is contagious. Let's share it with others in our community. You're a part of a wonderful community here. How can you share it with each other? So for this step, we just ask you a simple question. Who are you going to lift next week? Like, who are you going to lift up? And what's one way you're going to do that? And also, equally, if not more importantly, who are you going to ask for a lift? when you need an inspiration boost? Who are you going to tap, reach out to and say, you know what, I could use a little boost right now. I could use your help with something. I'm stuck. I'm not inspired in this. Can you help me? Who are you going to ask to lift or lift? So this is the 3-step process. I encourage you to, take it, download it, use it, and I hope that you'll, be excited and inspired to try this as a new inspiration practice for yourself. So with that, I'd love to just stop here and say, any questions? I'm happy to just have a discussion and hear your voices in the room and your thoughts now. So if you'd like, if anyone has questions, I guess you could type into the chat box, but you could also come off audio or raise your hand or come off audio, and I'm happy to answer questions there as well.
I think audio might be preferred if we have some folks out there with questions, or let us read them from the chat box, just to make sure that we can broadcast. The chat box isn't broadcast on the YouTube feed. But one of our teachers, Ms. Kotelman, has her hand raised if you'd like to take her question.
Okay, great.
Hi. One of the questions I had early on was how you factor in like motivation with this inspiration situation, because like sustained, like this intentional practice requires a lot of discipline. And I wonder how you factor motivation into this inspiration practice.
So are you asking what's the difference between motivation and inspiration, or are you asking how do you stay motivated to practice inspiration?
Yeah, I guess that's like either of those, because I don't really know if you and your co-authors see motivation as necessarily different from inspiration. So I guess, what is the difference if there is one?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And we do have in the back of our book, we talk about the difference between inspiration and things like drive, motivation, engagement, creativity, flow, because there is overlap. Like when you think about, inspiration, the way we define it very specifically, this idea of possibility, invincibility, it's about kind of an opening up of new solutions. So you can be motivated, for example, to do a lot of things where you're not necessarily opening up new possibilities or bringing invincibility to it, right? Like I will sometimes give the example that I am highly motivated as an individual around dental hygiene. It's like really important to me. And I don't make light of that. I think I take it very seriously. And, I have a whole system in the morning and at night, and, I follow my system and I do it and I perform well. Right. But when I think about that, I'm motivated because it's important to me. But I wouldn't necessarily say in those examples that I'm inspired. It's not like a new kind of energy or breath of life I'm bringing to something. It's more about doing it because it's important to me. And so we often will say motivation is a result of being inspired. So if you are inspired, you're going to feel more motivated. You're going to bring that motivational energy to do something. But you can be motivated to do things where you're not necessarily inspired, right? I don't know if that makes sense or answers your question.
Yeah, that absolutely answers it. Thank you.
Yeah. So when you think about inspiration specifically, it's like when we go back to the question of when do you need it, when do you want it? Because it's not like you need it every moment of every day, but you do need inspiration when you're looking to tackle those bigger problems, when you're looking to come up with new solutions. All of those things that people mentioned at the beginning where they need inspiration specifically, it's a different type of energy and result than motivation alone.
When I started your book, there was a quote right at the beginning that grabbed me, and it was, like other intentional practices for thriving in life, like exercise, time management, and meditation, you get to choose to sustain inspiration, own how you practice it, and maintain it in a way that is your own. And I had never thought before that that's a choice for me. I get to choose to be inspired.
Yeah.
So that was like, I had like this breakthrough moment where I thought, I don't have to wait for something to happen. I can make it happen. And then And then you go on in your book. I love your book, by the way.
Thank you.
You go on in your book to let us know that these are the tools that I'm going to give you in order to do it. And like, it's amazing, Allison. It's amazing. It's a fabulous book. I hope everybody gets it. And I never highlight in books because books are so sacred to me. And I'm highlighting in this book.
Oh my gosh, I want to see a picture. Send me a picture. I want to see.
Writing on the corners. So yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Sylvia. I really appreciate you sharing that, and just for the energy that you're bringing to this conversation. Yeah, I honestly, out of all of the points in the book, out of all of the ideas and everything we discovered, I actually think that it's the most important. It's the most important point that we can choose it, and it's empowering. Right? It's empowering to think that you can choose it when you need it. Doesn't mean that maybe always you can find it, right? Sometimes it can feel harder to find than others. It's true, but you can choose it. And then when you choose it, you can source it and look for it, and you can make it happen.
Another great quote in your book that is just like several pages later is that knowing that inspired teams like our team here at Anchorage STrEAM Academy are more innovative and more agile. They're driven to produce results. They're more collaborative and rich in information sharing. They're better at attracting and retaining top talent. And man, we have clearly a history of inspiration because we have the most talented staff. When I look at all of the people that I'm able to work with, and I'm new to the team this year, I'm just inspired by the things that I see in classrooms happening. There was an example, we had a social studies teacher, Ms. Gable, I'll call her out, who I started looking at her, the product of her students' work. Yesterday, I got so freaking excited about social studies that I had to do one of her assignments. It was amazing. And to be able to work with people like this, and then on top of it, to have this tool of your book, Dare to Inspire, just like, I can't even say enough.
Oh my gosh, thank you. That's awesome. It's amazing to hear. It's amazing to hear about your community because I'm new to it, hearing about it. And I so appreciate Principal McKelkey for reaching out because, I'm inspired by all of you and that the energy and the passion that you're bringing to the table. And it's true. So we talk about this in the book that there's, on teams and in communities, you have your sort of own levels of inspiration that you have for yourself. But then it's like, the Aristotle quote that the sum is greater than the whole of its parts. Wait, did I say that right? The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That's how you're supposed to say it. And that, there's sort of an entity, an energy that happens in a collective that's kind of separate from any of the individuals within it, right? So when you think about that as a group, there's a sort of a responsibility. And I feel this way too as a leader, as one of the co-CEOs of our company and those who are in our organization as well. We have a responsibility to be paying attention to, as much as I have to pay attention to how much I'm bringing inspiration to the conversations that need it. I also have to pay attention to what the inspiration levels are of our team when we need it, when we need to overcome those challenges and solve those big problems. How are we doing as a collective? And if we're not where we need to be, then we do look at those engines of inspiration. We do look at how can we manage our energy and reignite around what matters to us. So thanks for sharing that, Sylvia. Anybody else? I saw another hand go up earlier, or I saw a name pop in, but now I can't see whose hand was raised at that time. I'm looking through. It looks like Andranelle.
Oh, number one, I love so much that you said my name correctly. And I just put my hand up because, and now I have since forgotten what I was going to say. I will, but I always have something to say. Thank you so much for doing this. It has been, and I was just looking in the chat box at Terry. I don't know what's inspiring about the APC, but thank you. And I was just sitting here, I have a tendency to leak the tears when I'm happy. And I don't know why I thought I was going to come to this meeting today and not. I love you guys so much. And thank you very much for continuing to, like, you guys fill our buckets. Whitney and I talk about that all the time. And just so incredibly proud of you. And thank you for bringing, not like the things that have started happening in year 4 are the things that are the beyond. Like we set the baby off, and then it's like, well, and now the baby's been inspired to do all these other things. Like something like this was never a thing that occurred to us, like, and then the thing connecting the communities in Hawaii with us, and other schools in the area. So continue rocking it, STrEAM. Love you guys. Thank you, Allison.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Beautiful. And I'll just mention, because I heard it and saw it in what you just shared, one of our engines of inspiration is vulnerability and transparency. That when we're able to really share of ourselves, of our true emotions, with others, that it's inspiring, right? It inspires all of us to be able to connect in that way. So thanks for sharing that, Angela. Did I see another hand go up?
Yes.
Yes. Richard?
Yes.
Hi,
Hey.
Richard.
Hey, thanks for presenting. I appreciate that. It was really wonderful listening and hearing all about it. A personal, just kind of point of improvement for myself is asking for lifts, like you had mentioned. And one of the things that prevents me from doing it is I always try to find a nuanced way to ask for a lift rather than just directly saying, can I have a lift? Would you say that there's a difference between the two, or one is more effective than the other, or, do you have any advice, I guess?
I love that. So you're asking, so can you, when you say you have a more nuanced approach to asking how you get a lift, can you give an example or just say a little bit more about that?
I don't know, just kind of maybe small talk of some sort, like, oh man, I'm having kind of a bad day, or, even just, I don't know, because I feel selfish, I guess, if I just say, hey, I really need to be lifted up, please lift me up. So I try to find, I guess, a little bit more indirect way to ask for the lift.
Yeah.
And and I think that just, maybe I overthink it and it doesn't hit home. But as far as, do you feel like just a direct ask is pretty effective to get one?
I would encourage you to try it. And think about it as if you're running an experiment for yourself. Because the truth is, I don't know, because I'm not in your world, what might be more effective and work for you, but I love the idea of you trying something different. And I love that this has sparked the idea for you that maybe I could be more direct in asking. Certainly, because vulnerability is also one of our engines of inspiration, there is a moment of connection and opening that can happen when you simply say to somebody, not feeling super inspired right now, not having the best of days. And then asking, what do you do? How do you handle situations like this? And kind of picking their brains a little bit, and just letting them in more on that for your process can be, in itself, it can feel like a lift for you, because it's almost like you're connecting and sharing that burden a bit with somebody else, that feeling of I don't know if burden's the right word, but you're sharing that with others. So I encourage you to try it and see what happens. And I also appreciate you sharing that, you recognize it's something you could do more of.
I guess the biggest problem is, I feel when I ask for a lift, causing a drop for them, if that makes sense.
How many of you would feel open if Richard reached out to you and said, I could use a lift? Can you raise your hand if you would feel motivated by that? And so, yeah.
How many of you recorded on YouTube, which everyone will be able to see later? No,
Richard, it lifts me up when I'm able to lift you up, man. It's the opposite of a deficit for me. When one of you come to me for a lift, I'm honored to be that person for you, and it inspires me, and it gives me joy and purpose to lift up one of my colleagues.
Yes.
And I agree with Principal Mokelke in that if part of what inspires me is being able to serve you guys. And see, now Andrew now has me wanting to cry, but if I can't serve you, then I don't feel like I'm fulfilling my role here in the school. And so, and I don't think I'm unique in that. I think I share that with a lot of other people that are in this building. So to be hesitant to ask for help is something that you personally might need to overcome, but just know that we don't need to overcome anything, and you're not going to bring us down. You might be building us up when you ask for a lift.
I guess it's the manner in which, like, because I understand, Rich, what you're trying to do is like avoid like the negativity sort of cycle. So I guess it's the manner in which you like ask for it. So like there's a big difference between saying like everything sucks, this is hard, I can't do anything, versus like I am struggling with this, can you help me not struggle with this? Because like, does that make sense, Rich? So
That's a great distinction, Laura.
Yeah, like there are inspiring ways to ask for help.
Yeah. Hey, love it. Yes. Yeah. And I want to just double down on what I heard Sylvia and Principal Mokelke saying, which is that many of you serving others is an engine of inspiration. And so when you come to others, you're actually providing them an opportunity to say, it may lift them up, in fact, to be able to do that. So thanks for sharing. Any other questions? I know we're getting close to, oh yeah, I know we're at the top of the hour now. So what I do want to share with you all, and please, if you have any additional questions, feel free to send them my way via email or otherwise. I'm happy to, if you have other questions that come up along the way, just pass them along. And I did want to share with you all that we are offering a discount for our book. So if QR codes are new to me. I'm not really totally understanding how they work, but our person on our team told me that if you put your phone camera up to this, it will take you to a website link that will allow you to have a discount. But if there's any problems with that, I can also share with Principal Mokelke the actual link so that you all can have afterwards. But this is a discount that we have for you all. So if you're interested in the book, you can have that as well. So
that's that discount and the QR code, and I believe a web link are also on the PDF that you shared. So if anybody, and I reposted that once in the chat, folks, if you grab that PDF, which I have open, it's a cool, the roadmap piece. It's really neat. If you grab that, you'll see the discount code there as well.
I grabbed it too. I can email it out to the staff.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. So thank you so much for this conversation and for being here today. Yeah.
Thank you, Allison.
Thank you so much.
So I really appreciate you all being here, bringing your great energy. I love knowing you all. That this is, you definitely are a great example of an inspiring team and school. And so thank you for the invitation. And I really am excited to hear about all the different ideas that this might open up for you, as it has Sylvia. Thanks for sharing with you in terms of ways that you might practice this and bring this into your work more fully. So of course, as you're learning more and practicing and using the tool that we shared, if you have any insights, also feel free to pass along and share via maybe Principal Mokelke. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
All right. So with that, I will unscreen share.
Awesome.
All right. I don't know if you all have, if your meeting continues or.
Yeah. Well, we're about to start wrapping up, but yeah, actually, wow, time flew because that was so engaging. So thank you so much, Allison, for joining us today. Teachers, I hope, and staff, I hope you were inspired on your last day before we launch into summer break. And I know that there's a lot of uncertainty about what our next steps will be and what life will look like for us when we return to school in the fall. But I also know we'll collectively meet that challenge, because we always have, and because collectively we're an awesome team. I'm inspired. I hope you're inspired by this end of the year get together and this last chance to learn something and say goodbye. So I want to let folks go and wrap up. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you again, Allison, so much for being here. It's really incredible.
Thanks for having me be a part of it, and have a wonderful break, everybody. Congratulations on end of the year.
Thank you.
Take care.
Morning coffee next. After this, we'll move to 1 day a week for the next 3 weeks. Mrs. Beyondich and I are still working over the next 3 weeks. And so parents and teachers, if you're looking for some inspiration in the next couple of weeks, or you want to jump in and we've got some cool topics, you're welcome to join us. So next Wednesday, we'll talking a little bit about the different possibilities for reopening school that have been put out there by the state and by the district. And I want to look a little bit with parents who are interested at our school climate connectedness survey and some of those results. I'll share a little bit more on that. The following Wednesday, we have a TED speaker, Dr. Mary Beth Lee, a professor at UAF, who talks about integrating the arts into STEM. And you can look her up and check out her TED Talk to get a little preview. And we're really excited about that. That'll be cool. And then the last Wednesday that we'll meet before we come back in July, STrEAM's 501c3 will be sharing with us, our nonprofit. And we also have Representative Lance Pruitt, another one of our elected representatives in East Anchorage, who's going to come on and share with us. So 3 Wednesdays to come, three more morning coffees for this season, and then we'll wrap up for a break for about a month and come back in July. So thank you, everybody. I'll let you all go, and I'm going to stop the live feed on YouTube and say